wasn't calling myself an artist. And there was the thing about people kept saying, there's lots of foundations, you can apply for a grant here. And then I thought to myself, but what do you do then when the grants stop coming? Like, for real, like that was always a part of the question for me. I was like, what do you do the year you don't get it? Do you not make the art? Do you not make the work? Do you need to make the work? Is that something that you need to make, or were you making it for the grant? Were you making it because they said, you can do this thing, and I wanted to see if it was possible to sustain a practice without having, without doing that, without running on a cycle, without trying to do like Grant Cirque du Soleil and like fit myself into this thing. Because then I also sat on grant panels. And I was like, oh.
Me too. I think we've all sat on grant panels.
Yeah.
And, my realization was like, I was like, excuse my French, fuck this. I was like, this is ridiculous. I can't.
What was your fuck this moment?
Well, it was like I'm sitting there and I'm thinking like, I'm sitting here with other artists who are, I'm not to be a snob or to be an asshole or anything. They're not up to my caliber, I'm not up to their caliber, we're not in the same league, we've got different agendas. And this is a game pretty much of, am I friends with this one, and this one gonna help me? And I'm like, you know, forget about that. I'm just gonna basically fund my own projects. I'm gonna work my ass off and do other things, create work I sell that I'm proud of, where I can create my own projects, because I don't want someone else having control in my world that way. And coming from, I grew up in New York, and I went to school in New York, and I worked in publishing, and I worked behind the scenes for photographers and stylists and the whole thing. And so I was on the other end of the spectrum where I was producing, and I was a photo editor at a couple different magazines earlier on in life. But I didn't want to do that. I really wanted to be an artist, that's what I went to school for. But I really wanted to make money, and I really wanted to do all the fun things I really wanted to do. Like I wanted to travel, I want to have a dog, I want to live in Laurel Hill, I want to have a dog walker that came like twice a day. You know, it was goals.
Membership.
That was my 20 years.
It's called sidewalk.
Right. That was 20 years. That was my goal. You know, like having a house on the beach with my friends, so I could spend 3 months in the year. I watched my dog swim. I couldn't swim. I can't drive. So I could like arrange all this stuff with my other friends. But like that was so much more exciting for me and so much more fun in my 20s. And because I didn't grow up in America, my family came to America in the 70s from Guyana, the only English-speaking colony in South America, English country now. And so I didn't have like all these things where like I couldn't do this and I couldn't be this and I couldn't.
Yeah.
So I basically like, you know, my family grew up right in front of the Brooklyn Botanical Gardens. So on off days, that's what I went to, that was my babysitting. That's where, you know, like I would go to the gardens and I spent all day there. And
my mom made museums babysit us.
Yeah.
She would drop us off at 8:55, they open at 9, she'd be like, I see you at 6.
That's what my mom did too. And that's what I'm doing with my 2-year-old already. I'm like, let's go to the museum. It's like, yeah,
that's a way to raise a kid. Like I thought we were rare. I've never heard anybody else who said that, but my mother was like,
I grew up in the Carnegie Museum.
Mama loves
art in Oakland.
Right, and mine was the Brooklyn Museum and the Botanical Gardens.
Yeah.
And I was lucky to have that growing up in New York.
that's an education.
Yeah, and it also was one of the best art schools in New York, where I was like probably like there were 4 black kids in the department. There were 2 of them were Jamaicans, not American Jamaicans, but Jamaican Jamaicans. There was myself, and there was this other girl who was American. There were like the 7 Arab kids. Then there were the 6 Japanese who could afford to pay full price. And then there were some other kids. But it was just like sort of a mixture of people. So
Is it a part of your life where you count people of color?
yes, always.
Is that?
Me too.
Always.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't say it personally, but I
You do.
sort of.
I went to Winchester Thurston on scholarship. There, I was one of 3 black people in that class, in my class. I mean, there were only 30 people in class, but I was one of 3 of them. I teach at Carnegie Mellon University, and I have one African-American student in my class.
I think it's a secret survival skill that Black folks have to like immediately be able to like the internal people of color calculator.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Just like
3 Asian people, 2 Black people, 1 Black man, 1 student. Yeah.
Well,
The secret survival skill.
well, the other thing too was, for me, it was, I always wanted to find anyone who's different than me, because I was more interested in what they had to offer culturally, and what they were thinking and mentally, and so, if there were photographers, I didn't want to hang out with photographers, I wanted to hang out with graphic designers and filmmakers. I wanted to hang out with interior designers, and because I really knew photography and I was learning photography, I was spending a lot of money to be in school to learn photography, so why would not just hang out with all these other people who were going to basically be influential in some way, and in some way in the future be able to hire you, give you jobs, and
Have you always been a producer or presenter also, in addition to being a maker?
Yes, I grew up.
Really quick, how many artists in here also produce or present? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think that's part of being an artist for me, because I work my ass off here. And so it's a lot of, see, you're a producer, even though you're mentally producing and you're physically, and also being a photo editor, like you were constantly producing other people's work. So you were hiring the hair and makeup and find the location.
So you know how to do it.
So you knew how to do all that stuff.
I threw a lot of parties when I lived in Brooklyn. I threw a lot of parties, and that's like producing. And I painted murals, so that's also like in California. I painted murals, so then the culture of mural painting is to produce and like make sure community is there.
And it's
like,
kind of performing too. There's the performance of it. So it is the time that it is, and I'm gonna ask a couple questions, and y'all can ask questions. I did a talk we had a conversation at the August Wilson Center between my gallerist and me from New York. People in Pittsburgh always sort of ask me about the gallery scene, artists, like, how do you get a gallery? Like, do you need a gallery? I feel like not enough people see my work. And when we were there, I'm gonna tell people something you said to me at the end, and we're gonna talk about that together. Gavin came up to me and he was like, that was a great talk. And I was a little distracted, but you were like, it was great to hear you say some of those things, because it's hard. It's hard to be an artist in Pittsburgh. It's hard to be a Black artist in Pittsburgh. And that really stuck with me. And at the time I didn't have the sort of presence to say, what is that, Gavin? Like, what is inside of that?
Well, I think that to be an artist in Pittsburgh, period, there's only so much financial capital to go around from the foundations. And there's only so many people who are willing to buy.
Even the word foundation is funny, because you would think that you can stand firm upon the foundation.
No, you can't. And I'm not being shady or throwing shade or being a jerk. It's what it is. There's only so many people who are willing to spend the money to buy pieces that are $5,000 or $3,000, and there's only so many of those people in the city. And the rest of the people basically are interested in buying things from IKEA and Target and getting things for $5 and $20. So being an artist is not valued here. You're not valued as a person here. You're not valued as a creator. Our city doesn't value us, I think, partially. It doesn't fully support us.
I feel like I'm learning a lot about support right now, and like what it means to support other artists. A lot of time in Pittsburgh after, like, there was some point in time where I would just isolate myself. I was like, my mind is too easy. I can't do all of this stuff. I will just stay in this basement and make things. But I'm sort of understanding different ways about support. So when you say they don't support us, can you say what not being supported is, and also what being supported, it's sort of like the anatomy of support.
Well, for me, I'm a different case because I don't fully need to be supported by the city. I don't need to be. I mean, I make some of my money here, but I mean.
How do you
also,
want to be supported? How do you need to be supported? Where do you feel the lack in it? Where do you?
I feel the lack of it is for the other people coming up, the other generation, the generation behind me. I see it harder for them as artists, period, whether you're black or white.
Yeah.
They're not going to get some of the education that I've gotten or the education that you've gotten. You know, it's like I say to kids today, I'm like, get on the bus, get on the Greyhound bus, it's $30 to New York, spend the day, come back, you know what I mean? And they're looking at me like, huh? And I'm like, what's wrong with you kids? I'm like, get on the goddamn bus, do something, you know what I mean? And they're like, but they want to stay in this little vacuum for the most part. And they don't want to learn, they don't want to, like, I'm like, go to an art fair, see what other artists are making. Like, have a discussion, you know what I mean? Go to a museum.
So you're experiencing these interactions with young artists that have, where do you have these interactions with young artists?
Well, I see them all over. I mean, I see when I go to some openings, some of my colleagues and the other artists in Radio Hall, which I actually talk to a lot, and we actually have conversations back and forth. But there's only a few of us that are making a full-time living as an artist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sometimes I talk about that in Pittsburgh. I was like, wow, there's all these spaces to rent, to make art. I was like, who's seeing the art then? Like, there's just buildings all over Pittsburgh that are filled with artists renting studio space. And I was like, do they have galleries? Who's seeing their work? Who's buying their work? How do you pay so much per square foot to have a studio and pay your rent and like get on the bus? Like, how do you do that?
Right. Well,
It's
you know,
hard.
it's hard. And you've got to be, and again, like you said, keeping the noise out of your head. It's like, you know, like, I don't know how to drive. I lived on the farm for 3 years. People are like, how do you get around? I'm like, Uber. In my taxi. I grew up in New York City.